Hey there, Diane Conklin with Complete Marketing Systems and Diane'sFarmDozen.com. Episode 2 of Diane's Farm Dozen. I want to talk about the fact that everything has a season. Now, this may seem obvious, right? There's 4 seasons in the year: spring, summer, fall, and winter, depending on where you live. Here in Atlanta, we get a lot of summer, very little spring, a little bit of mostly fall, and maybe a little winter. But I love that, as opposed to Ohio, where I grew up on this farm that you're seeing in the background. That is, by the way, if you missed it, the actual farm, part of it, part of the 75-acre farm that I grew up on. There, we had medium-sized spring, good summer. Um, Fall lasted. They were kind of even. Although most of the time, winter seemed like it lasted. It was the longest season from a weather and snow and perspective, but pretty even. Break them into quarters. We tended to get that. I don't know what it's like anymore because I haven't lived there in a really long time. But everything has a season, right? Your business has seasons. Now, here's the caution. Don't use the seasons in your business. Well, my business is seasonal and this is a downtime. No, no, no. That's not what I'm talking about, right? That's an excuse. I'm sorry. Let me be a little less Diane. That's a reason. It's an excuse. Let me just be me, right? It's an excuse that people use when they're not, when business is down. Oh, well, it's slow season. Well, it's slow season because you haven't marketed and put your marketing plan in place to avoid the slow seasons. Yeah, but Diane, you don't understand. In my business, right? Look, so let me give you this as an example. I have a catering client who happens to live here in Metro Atlanta, and he's been with me now for, I think it's 8 years, as a coaching client, because he's getting results, right? And when he came to me first, that's what he would say. Well, it's a slow season. Well, we just finished the holidays, and so nobody's having parties, nobody's catering events, nobody's whatever, right? And I said to him, "Really, is that true?" Because he would pop up in January with, "Hey, we got this big job," or "I'm doing a this or that." So I began to question his paradigm, which is what it was, about his seasons and the seasonal way that his business ran. And so the very first year, when he, usually in October, November, sometime in the fall, I have an event where we do a marketing plan. And we plan out your marketing calendar, not a business plan, your marketing calendar for the following year. And usually the first time or two, people do it, but it doesn't really sink in until they've done it a few times. Interestingly enough, when I did this for the very first time at an event, I was shocked at the number of successful business owners who never had a marketing plan. And then to find out in the following year, when they came back to do the same thing, that they had exponentially increased their profits, not just their revenues, but their profits, because they had this plan, because they weren't wasting time, energy, and money throwing mud on a wall and having to clean it up, right? But back to the caterer. So he did the marketing plan, excuse me, we went through this whole process. And then what happens many times is people don't, they go through the process, but then they never look at the marketing calendar again, right? It's kind of like we go to the event and take notes, and then we never look at the notes again. Same thing, right? So that happened the first year. The second year, he kind of looked at it, but then he got away from it. Well, now, 8 years in, right? It happened before this, but he's actually got the marketing calendar. It's on his wall. He looks at it. We review it during our coaching sessions, and he no longer has these down seasons. Now, every business is going to have times when they're busier and not as busy, right? But he no longer has what I call the roller coaster, right? And that's what most businesses have. Why? Because when you're doing well and you're up here, you stop marketing. And by the time it starts to go down and you go, "Oh my gosh, we need to add some more marketing," right? It takes a minute for it to come back up. Well, I have this thing called ABM, always be marketing. If you're always marketing, then your business will, it's still going to have ups and downs, but it's going to be more of a steady state, right? That's what you want. You don't have to worry about these seasons. You don't have to worry about these seasonal dips that you take for granted, right? Now, it's a little different than the seasons on the farm, right? Because in the spring, and the summer, we're planting, and in the fall, we're harvesting. That's just how it works on a farm as far as plants go, corn and and wheat and oats and all of that. And the season though for that is knowing, when to plant, what to plant, how to rotate, not always planting the same thing and depleting the soil in your fields, that kind of thing. It's always interesting. I have a tendency to go back to Ohio, Dayton area is where my family is, um, in October, because of a friend of mine that I went to school with from kindergarten all the way through high school. Her family owns what used to be a dairy and tobacco farm. It's no longer a working farm, but they still own it. They've sold off some of the land, but anyway, she has an apple butter festival at the farm every year, and so I go back, and it's always fun because when I go back in, it's usually October, sometimes September. Um, and it's during this harvest season, right? And so I was visiting with my sister who lives on a property that my family owns, 40 acres, which is my mother's parents' house and my grandparents. Um, and last year when I was back, I pulled in the driveway and they're starting to harvest the corn across in the field across the road. They almost said street, they're roads. And so I pulled in and parked and went in and was there for several hours. And they were about halfway done with the field when I left. And I came back the next day, and literally it went from these, corn stalks that were, I don't know, 6 foot tall, 7 feet tall, to flat ground where you could see, into the woods that was a half a mile away, kind of thing. And it's always interesting how the landscape changes. Well, the same things happens in our businesses, right? The landscape changes during these seasons that we have. And so one of the things that people often say, if I gave you the catering example, he no longer has these down periods. Even during times when traditionally in his business, it would not be busy. He's busy. Why? Because we've put things in place, and not all of them are necessarily um, big event kinds of things, right? But we've put things in place for him. So he has a continuity business now where he mails out jams and jellies and salad dressings and seasonings kind of thing. So that helps. He does a private in-house dining, um, one-on-one, two-on-two, four-on-four kind of thing, small group, intimate setting kind of, it's like instead of going, for example, instead of going to a restaurant on Valentine's Day, right? He comes in and caters your own private one-on-one kind of thing. So those are just two of the examples. But the other piece of it is that he's marketing all the time now. And so he's gone out to hotels and that don't offer food and beverage and has set up some package plans. And we've done a lot of things, obviously, with him over the course of 8 years that we've put in place so that they're stopgaps, right? We've taken a plug and we've plugged it in those holes that were leaking out of his bucket during those traditional seasonal downtimes. So yeah, everything has a season, and your business will go through different seasons. But the good news is, unlike the weather and unlike, we don't control winter, spring, summer, fall, right? You do control the seasons in your business. That's the cool thing. You get to control, I have another friend, you may, who this person is, but she takes off 2.5 months during the summer every year and has since I've known her. I've known her for 25 years. Blocks that out on her calendar first thing when she does her marketing calendar during the year. And she takes off 2 weeks at Christmas and runs a six-figure business. Why? Because what's important to her is spending summers with her kids and her husband at their lake house. So she has controlled the season, and she controls what she does the other 9 months out of the year based on what's important to her, which is having that 2.5 months and that half month during those two times of the year, right? So you get to control your seasons. You get to determine when you work and when you don't work. You get to determine your income. Growing up on the farm, we didn't determine when planting season was, right? We just determined when we got out there based on, the weather being good and that kind of thing. You have a lot of control over the seasons in your business. You get to determine them. You get to make them, even during times that you might think of as downtimes, just by being creative, just by using your head and thinking about things and changing your paradigms in different ways. What paradigm do you need to change? What season do you currently have in your business that's not bringing in the amount of revenue, profits, income that you need it to? And how can you change that? I'd love to talk to you about it if you have questions and you're not sure. In the meantime, make sure you go to dianesfarmdozen.com to get all 12. We put together a little PDF for you that you can put it on your hutch or on your desk or whatever you want to do with it. But it's there for you, and that way you'll make sure that you get all of the rest of the videos in the series. All right. So remember, everything has a season. The great news about being in business is you get to determine your seasons. Until next time, make it a great day. I'm Diane Conklin with Complete Marketing Systems and Diane'sFarmDozen.com.